Alright, guys, I'm here to further elaborate on my reasoning for why I gave the Black Panther a 8 out of 10. Now, I want to tackle this a bit more direct, so I'm going to go by parts. First off, let's talk about the characters. The characters in this movie they're pretty damn good. They're great characters. I personally don't find them all that interesting, but they're good characters in the film, and they do their roles great. They're acted great, and they all have a set of motivations that I understand and can sympathize for, and that's all awesome. I'm gonna lump the villain in another aspect, not necessarily a great one, but I'll explain why I'm not very fond of the villain in another part. Let's stick to the great things about this film is the character of T'Challa. T'Challa is one of Chadwick Boseman's greatest achievements. He made this character believable, and I actually completely buy into this character. I really like what this film did with this T'Challa and actually made him grow as a person. And pretty much every single character here had some minor growth in them, despite the ending being kind of cliche and cheesy. Now, let's move on to the story since I just mentioned that. Now, the story, despite being a bit cheesy at the end and a bit cliche, and kind of just ends up pretty tidy, and there's no real consequences to any of the actions some of the characters did, as far as I know. But that's still a fault in the movie for not showing me the consequences of some major actions certain characters made against others. And I just have to say that outright, that I needed that consequences for actions that this film sometimes didn't live up to. But other than that, the story is pretty solid. It's a pretty damn solid film. The story is pretty straightforward. It asks a very simple question. If you have the power, do you do something with it? And it's a very cliche question, but it's framed in a very political, socially commented way that kind of makes it feel new. For example, this whole with great power comes great responsibility comes from Spider-Man. It doesn't originate from Spider-Man, but it's more attached to Spider-Man. And Black Panther asks a similar question, just that instead of a singular person, it's a country. And that kind of changes the environment, and this movie did its best at explaining and really going into deep details as to why the country decided to do some things rather than other things. And while I don't agree with the choices made by some certain characters, I appreciate that they at least put the effort into creating different ideals and different opinions that are tackled in this film, and that's great. I really like how pretty much every single character in this film had something to do with the plot. There wasn't any real useless character, except personally T'Challa's mom. She really didn't do anything in the movie, but she brought in more of the emotional weight, I guess. She kind of just vanishes from the climax of the film, and you kind of don't miss her. So maybe that's a lost opportunity. Up to you. Moving on, the comedy in this film is great. It's very brief. It's not in your face like it was in the Guardians of the Galaxy series, or how it is in Ant-Man. I really appreciate the brevity of the comedy, and it isn't that all the comedy lands, because it doesn't. This is one vegetarian joke that's just really bad. It's not that the joke was bad. It's just that the person who said it doesn't really feel like that will be something he says, because it was established earlier in the film that he brings in this persona. But maybe that's them just trying to further deepen the character. And I don't know, it could be just my opinion that just that vegetarian joke just wasn't really needed, and that's just an example. It's not all the cases. Another thing that this film kind of that I appreciate and at the same time kind of see flawed is the action. The action in this film is amazing when it's amazing, and when it's And when it's bad. Because mainly the hand-to-hand combat, it isn't until the climax where the hand-to-hand combat really flourishes. Because before then, it's very dark. We don't really see what's going on, and it doesn't help that the Black Panther suit is black. Every now and then, we can see why they added the purple just so you can see the Black Panther. But it's the editing mainly that really ruins the fight scenes most of the time. There's this really great car sequence at the very beginning of the film, and that's awesome. But again, it's far in between what I really wanted. Some people say they wanted more action. Some people wanted more tension. I'm in the middle saying the action that we got was great. The tension that we got in this movie was great. I just needed the action to be better. Plain and simple. Now, I gotta go into the villain, honestly, and I see a lot of people praising this film because of its villain. And I'm gonna be tackling a lot of the praises in this film and telling you guys whether or not I am in accordance or against. And in the villain department, I'm against. I know that's a very unpopular opinion right now, but I just don't see Killmonger as a great villain. I guess he could be debated that he's a good villain, but he's not a great villain. Just because he can sympathize with the dude does not mean he's a great villain. A great villain is not just based on how much you can sympathize with him. For example, the Joker. The Joker is a great villain, but you cannot sympathize with this man at all. Well, we do know that he's motivated and that he follows this sort of code despite not having one. And that code is pretty much anarchy, just chaos. And that's great. But the reason why we like the Joker and it's because he's captivating and he's very interesting, he's intriguing, he brings you into the film. But Killmonger, while you can sympathize with the dude, he lacks a presence. And that's the biggest problem I have with him. Michael B. Jordan acted his ass off with this guy, and he did a great job, but Michael B. Jordan just doesn't have the presence of a villain, and maybe a bit more experience and a bit more, maybe it's more of just me being biased, but Michael B. Jordan, while a great actor, does not make for a great villain. He needs more presence. He needs to be more intimidating. He has a great muscular figure. He needs to work with it. And it's probably because of how this movie made Killmonger speak. His way of his speech patterns and how he carries himself is more of a thug, and I can't see a thug as someone who wants to become a king. And that's not really much of a spoiler as to that's what the main movie is about. Those two don't really mesh well in my mind. And again, this just could be my bias, but it's one of the things that hold it back. Another thing is, I just personally could not connect to the movie all that much, despite me really understanding the emotions and all the weight and tension that this film has, because it does have some great tension, but I just couldn't connect to it, and that's a more of a personal thing than anything else. But I have to be honest. As to the reason why, it may be because I don't know. I think it's because of the social commentary just doesn't feel like it's directed at me. Therefore, I feel a bit distant from the film. Now, that's another thing I need to point out, because this movie does a lot of social commentary, and some people while they don't disagree with the film, may dislike the fact that it's so in your face about it. And the film is very upfront about what it's trying to say, about the message it's trying to convey. And at the points, it just gets a bit cheesy. But I think that's one of the highlights about this film. Again, I'm going to talk in a more personal sense because this is my personal opinion. I wouldn't put Black Panther in my top 5. It's in my top 10 for sure. And the same thing goes for Killmonger. He's not in my top 5 villains, but he's in the top 10. And that's pretty much just brings me to the end. That this film is it's a good film. I like this film, and I will see this film again. But like my rating says, an 8 just means I like it and I will see it on occasion. And I'm sticking to that. But then again, I'm just a guy sitting by the lagoon, enjoying the view. Catch you later, guys.